We all have heard of NATO, but what does NATO actually do?
The business of NATO is to create the foundation of peace, security, and stability for our nations to thrive. Every facet of human activity has a security dimension to it. And NATO has a fantastic, we have, I think, in the DNA of this organization, the capacity to adjust to an evolving security environment. There's no dimension of human activity, from business to technology and from space to cyberspace, where NATO doesn't have a say and an added value to bring.
Welcome to In Search of Excellence, which is about our quest for greatness and our desire to be the very best we can be, to learn, educate, and motivate ourselves to live up to our highest potential. It's about planning for excellence and how we achieve excellence through incredibly hard work, dedication, and perseverance. It's about believing in ourselves and the ability to overcome the many obstacles we all face on our way there. Achieving excellence is our goal, and it's never easy to do. We all have different backgrounds, personalities, and surroundings, and we all have different routes on how we hope and want to get there. My guest today is Mircea Geoana. Mircea is the Deputy Secretary General of NATO and has had a distinguished career as a politician and diplomat for more than 3 decades. At the age of 36, he became the youngest ambassador in Romania's history when he was appointed as the ambassador of Romania to the United States. He later served as president of the Romanian Senate, Romania's Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Romania's Deputy Prime Minister. In 2009, he narrowly lost the election to be president of Romania when he received 49.67% of the vote. Mircea has served as a board member of several organizations, including the World Economic Forum, the Aspen Institute, and the European Council on Foreign Relations. In addition to his political career, he is also a published author and has written several books on foreign policy and international relations. Welcome to In Search of Excellence.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be back in LA.
Great to see you. It's been 6 years since we last got together.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being here. Let's start with family. I always start with our family because our family helps shape our personality, our values, and the preparation for our future. I want to know about the influence your dad has. He served in the military. He was a discipline, and your mom as well. Tell us about your background and the influence they had growing up, and why you hit a report card from your dad.
Listen, I was born in communist Romania, and for the ones who have not lived under communism, it's difficult to explain what kind of society we were living in. My family, like in all our cases, played a huge role in my education, my formation. My dad was in the military, but he was educated as a civilian. He was an engineer by training. And then he joined the military after he graduated. So he's sort of a hybrid civilian military kind of person. And I still, think of him with great fondness, and he helped me a lot. My mom used to work for the transportation company of Bucharest. Everything in communist Romania, in communist countries, were public owned. So there was no private sector. So when you think of people like us coming from that part of the world, you should think that the transition from communist to capitalism and from dictatorship to freedom was a pretty big transformation. So they educated me well. I think they taught me to be hardworking, to study. For us, going to school was the only way out. There's no other way. You couldn't start a business because there was no private sector. So the only thing we had to do is learn. And this hunger for learning is still with me at a relatively more advanced age.
You were active as a kid. You were an athlete. You played basketball. You played football in the snow. You loved tennis. You played. What else were you doing as a kid? And were you thinking about your future in your teenage years and what you wanted to do back then?
No, it was, childhood is beautiful everywhere, because, you're a kid. I remember, fighting, kids from other streets and neighborhoods, sometimes quite actively. Lots of sports. I remember being in school. We had classes in the afternoon. So in the morning, I was going to play tennis semi-professionally. I went to school, and in the end, I was doing basketball semi-professionally. So lots of sports, lots of school. I was also very lucky to, I was playing in my high school's basketball team, in the high school soccer team. And I went to college. I even if I was an engineer by training, I went to play for the School of Architecture, and basketball because I was courting my future wife, Mihaela. So yeah, sports school. We did a lot of sports back in the day.
So Romania became a democracy in 1989 when you were 31 years old. You're 64 years old today. You lived half your life in communism. What was it like growing up in communism? And can you give us some specific examples of things that you did like and things that you didn't like?
Mention when you're a kid and even a teenager, life is life. Boyfriends and going to school and trying to date girls if they accepted our invitation. It was not always self-evident. But as I grew older, I started to feel the pressure of oppression. So there was a pressure of oppression in the air. I remember after having met Mihaela and being engaged with my wife, I tried to get a visa to travel in the West every single summer. And every single summer, the same reply came back to me in a sort of a grayish, ugly postcard in my mailbox of my apartment flat in Bucharest, and saying your request for travel has been approved. That was typed and by hand negatively. So every single time it was this negative. So all my, let's say, young years, I dreamt of the West. I speak many languages. We have good education in our systems. I speak many languages. That's something we did. So the moment when communism collapsed, my first reaction is to try to go and see the West that I was, dreaming about so much. And I went to school in France for 2 years, one of the very good public administration schools. And then I became ambassador. So, what I learned in life, beware what you wish for, because now I'm traveling too much and I have too little time to spend with family. But the change of a system was immense. And it's difficult to explain to an American that with all the imperfections of the American system, you've been living in this system for centuries. Imagine, a nation like Romania or others in my part of the world that we had in 10 years, let's say between 1938 and 1948, 10 different constitutions, 10 different political regimes. So in a way, these geopolitical earthquakes have a direct implication on our countries. In a way, probably Romanians are the most adaptive of the citizens in the universe, just because, in a way, our history has always been earthquake, geopolitical earthquake. And that's when we discovered freedom. Finally, we try to hold to this because we know how important it is to live in freedom and democracy. When you don't have it, you appreciate it more. When you're accustomed to it, you start to say, okay, we can live without that. No way. Freedom is everything.
I hope you're enjoying this video so far, but before we jump back in, I want to know if you've ever thought about what you need to do to reach the next level of success in your life. Over the last 25 years, I've been an advisor to more than 50 companies. I've invested nearly 100, including Google, Lyft, and Seagate. And I also co-founded a company that today is worth more than $15 billion. I've been incredibly blessed in my journey, and at this stage in my life, I want to give back. I want to share the lessons I've learned so you can reach incredible success way faster than I did. In my own journey, I've learned that having the right mentor is a massive advantage to achieving our goals. I'm hugely passionate about mentoring others, and I'm looking for a few hungry entrepreneurs who are excited to take action on their journey to incredible future success. So if that's you, I've got an opportunity. In the description of this video, there's a link where you can apply to work with me. All you need to do is answer a few simple questions, and if you're a good fit, my team will reach out so we can build a game plan together. All right, now let's get back to the video. What made you want to come to the West? Were you, as a kid, did you read about the West, and what was it about the United States that said, I want to go there?
There was a fascination with America all over communist Europe. And I remember I was in high school and we had an English teacher, a wonderful lady, and she was, teaching us British English with proper British accent. And every summer, after the summer break, we came back with American accent because we were listening to music and even watching movies. In communist Romania, the VCR tapes, you remember those things from ancient history? And to have a VCR machine, it costed in communist Romania as much as a car because they were smuggled. So even if we're not allowed to do this, we still were watching music. And I think the soft power of America is just incredibly powerful everywhere. So we dreamt of the West. I also dreamt of Western Europe, of France, of Italy. The name of Romania comes from Rome. So we are one of the 5 Roman-speaking languages in Europe: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian. So we are the Eastern brothers and sisters of this family that the Roman Empire basically created in Europe and indirectly around the world. And we have a couple of Italian Americans here.
What do you think today? You came to the United States for freedom, democracy, just to see the West and how we lived here. It was sort of a dream to come here. What do you think of the millions of people today trying to get into the United States from Mexico and all these other countries who are under tremendous pressure in their homeland? Should we let them in, or are they just never going to get in?
I'm a political person, and I know how difficult such a conversation really is, because America is a melting pot by definition. It's a land of immigration and immigrants. And you're proud of that, and you should be proud of that, of your diversity, of the fact that you could really unite so many different nations and cultures and languages into an American proposition for societal organization. But also when there is too much, there is always a reaction. And that's why to manage to be true to the original proposition of America, that everyone that is seeking for freedom and looking for a better life, they should be welcome. But in real political terms, that's not always very, very easy, and you create a sort of a counter-reaction from the ones already in America. So I wish luck to the American politicians to try to solve this problem. It's not going to be easy. But when I was coming to America and when I was studying in France after the fall of communism, it was not only the idea to discover the West because I dreamt about it. It was always a source of inspiration how to rebuild my country back home in Romania. Because everything was to be rebuilt. Democracy didn't exist. The institutions of parliament, the institutions of the Supreme Court, the institutions of democracy, the checks and balances, rebuilding the economy on private sector, on capitalism. So this was a huge transformation. We call it a transition from a communist system to capitalistic system. And this is a never-ending story. As America is evolving, we're also now trying to get to the next stage. So yeah, visiting is nice, learning is a lot, but the real question for me as a leader, how can I transfer back home the best ideas from the West, but not to transfer them in an uncritical way, but to do it in a way that will fit my culture, that will fit my reality, that will fit, retain also the history of my land and of my people. So it's a fascinating experience and journey.
You mentioned university. You're highly educated. I think probably in the 99th percentile. You went to Polytechnic University, University of Bucharest. You have a master's in law degree from there. You went to L'École. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it right, but another university in France, which is the
equivalent of the, let's say, Harvard Kennedy School, the best European public administration school.
And then you got a PhD as well.
In economics.
So that's a lot of school. My question to you is education necessary to our success and our future? And if so, how important is it?
That's how I was educated, and I don't see myself, stopping from learning. Of course, degrees, that's great. I'm a very curious person. I like to learn new things, and I always look to new challenges. Sometimes, especially for the young ones, it seems that there are other, shortcuts to success than education. And I would say that even there are. And America is an abundant example of people making it up to the top without necessarily having formal education. So I don't insist on formal education. I insist on ongoing process of learning new stuff. And you can learn new stuff not necessarily going to school. If you go to school, that's perfect. And the more complex the world is, the less sufficient formal education becomes. So I understand the young ones that say, okay, I don't want to spend, I don't know how many years. It's also very expensive in America. Unfortunately, education is in Europe, public education is dominant. So what I'm saying, never be satisfied with yourself. That's my lesson. And if you can go to acquire education in a traditional sense, perfect, that's great. But even if you don't go through that avenue, never be satisfied with what you know. Because you always be challenged, because things are moving so fast. So my appeal to the young ones, formal education or not, learn. And you can learn by, just by experimenting new things, or you can go to school or get a crash course, many things online today. So never be satisfied with what you know. There's never going to be enough.
Your daughter went to Penn. As you know, a lot of entrepreneurs in the world and people wanting to start their businesses, especially young people right out of school. A lot of people think, I don't need to go to school to have my own company. My son for a while said, Dad, I don't know why I need college. I'm going to start my own company. And I said, okay, Charlie, well, where are you going to live? So he started thinking about going to school, and he came around. But what do you say to all the people who are dropping out of school or are saying, I really don't need this. I'm going to start a career right after high school. I have an idea for a new company. Should these entrepreneurs go to school, or should they just start and pursue their dreams?
I believe that there is no universal recipe for success. So if you have a drive in yourself and you find it at very early stages, and you choose to start your own, your new startup or whatever idea, go for it. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying that at a certain moment in time, you'll feel the need of having a little bit more consolidated foundation for knowledge. And even your instincts for business are great. And even the temptation and the invitation for success quick in America is the norm. Don't be satisfied to what you know, because you'll need to bring your business to the next level. And for that next level, probably you'll need more things that you can acquire empirically through life experience, or structured way through education. So I'm just saying, the same mantra for me. This is true for Anna, for our daughter, our son Alex went to Stern, to NYU, the business school. And sometimes they use what they learn in school. Sometimes they don't. Right. So sometimes there is a question, what's in there for me to spend long years of hard work and exams and everything else and that huge competition? But I would say, learning how to learn, and understanding that learning is not just a formalized process, is a process you can have every day by reading a different book or meeting new people. So my strong plea for the young ones, choose whatever avenue you want to choose, but never believe you know enough, because no one knows enough. And you need to absorb more knowledge in a formal or informal way. Anyway, don't think that if you're successful in the first years of your career is the end of life. No, life is long, hopefully, and you'll be challenged, and you need to know more things and more people to thrive.
I think there's another huge benefit to going to college, which is the social aspect. I know I started at 18, I came out at 21, and the person I started with and the person that I left with were just enormously different people. You make friends. Some friends I probably have 5 great friends from college. I've learned from so many of my classmates as well. It made me a better person, better professional as well.
Yeah, that's also a great social network. And I know that Anna and Garrett, our fiancé and future husband, I think they are so, part of this fraternities and sororities and friends, and they travel now they start to have weddings. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Going to school is also giving you access to lots of friends that probably they stay with you all your life. And that's great. emotionally, but also socially, because you never know when you need someone who knows someone.
Right.
Because in the end, life is also about social connections, and if somebody is answering your phone or your email or not. So yeah, that's a great point.
All right, let's talk about NATO. NATO is a military and political alliance established on April 4th, 1949. It was created to provide collective defense against external threats, particularly the Soviet Union, during the Cold War. It started with 12 members, now up to 31 members. Finland is the latest. There's 1 billion people living in NATO countries, and more than 50% of global GDP is from NATO countries. NATO has a $1.1 trillion budget. We all have heard of NATO, but what does NATO actually do?
We take peace, security, and stability for granted. The business of NATO is to create a foundation of peace, security, and stability for our nations to thrive. Look at the atrocious war that Russia started against Ukraine, and our nation and kids like our kids, dating and social app and having normal lives, all of a sudden, that thing was interrupted brutally. So NATO is the business of ensuring the foundation for peace, for security, for business, for family. So we are the insurance policy for all our 1 billion citizens. From Finland, the newest member, and hopefully Sweden pretty soon. We are looking forward to receiving our Swedish friends. And these two countries are very interesting to as an example, why nations want to join NATO. You mentioned that in 1949, next April we have 75 years since we were created. Why countries want to join NATO? Why Romania was trying to join NATO? Why, as an ambassador and foreign minister, I raised the flag of my country to become a new member of NATO. I'll never forget this. It's because the belonging to this club of democracies, united by the values and also by the sacred, vow to defend each other, like musketeers, one for all and all for one, is nothing short of formidable. And I'm very, very heartened to see that in the American public, I've seen some polls, there are 80+% of Americans that believe NATO is a great thing. Because Americans also, because the largest country in NATO, they also see it's good to have friends and allies. And especially in such a complex world with so many challenges, it's good to have friends and allies, and NATO is just that. Peace, stability, and the foundation for everything else we do.
Can you give us some specific examples of things that NATO has done even this past year and maybe in the past 5 years, some highlights of tangible things that NATO has done?
Listen, of course, we are in the business of deterrence and defense. That's the bread and butter of what we do. But the definition of security, for economic security, to resilience, to cyber, to space, to AI and big data, to quantum, to biotech, to human enhancement, should I go on? Every facet of human activity has a security dimension to it. And NATO has we have, I think, in the DNA of this organization, the capacity to adjust to an evolving security environment. Of course, defense, as we know it from the movies, with fighter jets and, everything else. But we are, in fact, in the business of looking to every facet of security, supply chain, energy security, undersea cables. We are now starting in NATO a new unit to look into critical undersea infrastructure. So let's give the example of Google, the largest owner of undersea fiber optic cable in the world. And we work with industry as well to say, okay, where is the most vulnerable point? You've seen the pipelines, Nord Stream 1 and 2 being sabotaged a few weeks back. So when you think of NATO, think of course, of hardware, but think also of a lot of climate change and security. We are big on climate change and security, especially in the Middle East and every other place. So think of NATO as a sort of I said policy insurance for security. There's no dimension of human activity from business to technology and from space to cyberspace where NATO doesn't have a say and an added value to bring.
Let's talk about the Russian invasion, which is the largest conflict since World War II. In December 2021, 100,000 Russian troops essentially surrounded Ukraine on 3 sides. 2 months later, on February 24, 2021, Russia invaded Ukraine. We all knew that the war was coming. We tried at the last minute to prevent Mr. Putin from going over the brink. Did NATO just stand there and watch it happen? And what could you have done to prevent this?
Listen, we tried hard up to the very last minute to dissuade Russia from going in that direction. We knew that they would do it. I would say for the first time ever, American intelligence, British intelligence, and Allied intelligence were also shared publicly, of course, curated, but nonetheless, we use it as a strategic communication tool for the first time ever. And secondly, I remember in January 2021, just a few weeks before the invasion, we had we called the Russians to NATO headquarters in a sort of a NATO-Russia council, which was the format of discussing issues. And we tried to dissuade them from doing that. I think they had their minds made up much earlier. I think they had their minds made up when they started 2008 to invade Georgia. In 2014, when they occupied Crimea and a portion of the Donbas, the eastern Ukraine. So I think they were basically already convinced, for the wrong reasons, that the only way to defend their interests is to basically disrupt. They also had a very interesting miscalculation, and I'm still wondering how happens that it's a country that has a tradition of geopolitics. It still is an empire. So at least to develop a sense of strategic common sense, if you want. And they got it wrong. They thought that Kiev will be falling in a few days. They thought that Ukrainians would not fight for their freedom. They really thought their own propaganda that the West is decadent and America is decoupled from its European allies. They believed that will not be able to really help Ukraine and also impose sanctions. So this is the only thing I still don't comprehend. How can you get it so dead wrong? And I have one explanation as a Romanian who has lived in communism. And the last years of Ceausescu, the dictator that, led the country for many years, especially the last years of Ceausescu, there is a bubble of only of yes men around the leader. You don't bring bad news to the leader. You're afraid of bringing bad news to the leader. So I think Putin was, and probably still is, living in a sort of a bubble where his own reality is in his head, the reality outside of the Kremlin. And I think in a way, having too much power and having so much fear from the others, from being told the truth, I think it was the number one explanation for this decision that basically went wrong on all fronts. He said that he's doing this to stop NATO from enlarging.
Right.
You know that Sweden, for our American friends thinking, Sweden has been a neutral country in Europe from 1812, after the Napoleon Wars. They've been a neutral country, a proud neutral country in Europe, Sweden, for 2 centuries. And they said no more NATO on our borders, and I have a Finnish border, which is 1,300 kilometers long. And Sweden, a formidable country, with great technology, with great democracy, with great education system, like the Finns coming and joining our ranks. So they got it all wrong. And I think it comes from the way in which the leadership is basically living in a different parallel reality than the world that they're living in.
Talk about miscalculation. I've had over 200,000 soldiers dead or wounded. You have Western sanctions, which has helped cripple the Russian economy. You've got all Western companies leaving. What are people in Russia starting to say to themselves? They must know people who are going to the front lines and getting gunned down. You're reading in the newspaper about people just charging against machine guns and just getting mowed down by machine gun fire. Are people in Russia going to eventually say, hey, this is crazy? Is there going to be maybe an uprising there? Or is Putin just saying, I really don't care, I'm going to clamp down on people? He's sentencing people to jail for 6 years, 10 years who speak out against the war. What's going to happen to the people in Russia?
I hope that the Russian people realize that this is basically one of the worst decisions that leadership in Moscow has taken probably in centuries. I think this is a fundamental strategic error that will impact the future of this big country. But having said that, I also doubt that the Russian average citizen has access to real information. First of all, they live in a sort of a bigger bubble than the one in the Kremlin. So internet is not free. Information is curated. The average person is fed with propaganda. I remember this from communist Romania. And the ones who have been, let's say, the middle class, the educated young professionals, they left the country already when the first draft for joining the military was triggered by the Kremlin. So in a way, I'm afraid that great people is in a way sticking to the manuscript propaganda coming from the Kremlin. I hope there will be a change, but for the time reason, we don't see enough critical mass of change in Russia happening. And the losses, even the losses are not known to the public. Of course, empirically, when you see the coffin of your young son coming to your family, you see it, but there is still not enough critical mass for change in Russia, unfortunately, and the grip of dictatorship is very, very strongly embedded in Russia, unfortunately. So let's hope that one day they will wake up and will see that, in a way, Russia has always been part of European and Western culture. You see the musicians and everything else. But now, in a way, they decoupled from civilized Europe and the civilized world. And they are becoming more of a Eurasian power than a European power. And this is, in the end, their decision what kind of future they want to embrace. And if they want to be living in civilized Europe and democratic and prosperous Europe, and that would be great. But if they don't, they won't.
You said Russia's going to wake up. I think they're fully awake right now, and I think Putin knows what he is doing. How's this going to end? He can't save face if he doesn't say, I'm going to get something in return. And Ukraine is saying, I'm not giving up a single foot of land. So how's this going to end? We're already hearing about NATO countries saying, hey, we got to try to fix this, but I don't know how they're going to fix it. I mean, President Macron is working his way in. I think there's some reticence right now of keeping funding. Is this going to go on for 20 years indefinitely, like Afghanistan, for example, where you're just going at it?
No, wars eventually end. And history teaches us lots of examples of how war ends. Most of the times they end in a negotiation. But in order to have the political conditions for a negotiated peace, you need to have both sides, the Russians and Ukrainians, having enough of a compromise that would be acceptable to each of the two sides. So today we don't see the political conditions met for a settlement. But coming to the ones who started the war, so if Mr. Putin would like to end the war, he can pick up the phone and end it now. Say, okay, we stop.
Right. Not going to happen, though.
Not going to happen. So the only way to change the calculus in Mr. Putin's mind and his entourage is to have the cost-benefit analysis look even more dire to them. So helping Ukraine, it's counterintuitive what I'm saying. Giving Ukraine more help now is the fastest way towards peace, because it's the only way to change the calculation in Moscow to say, okay, cost-benefit analysis. What do you get and what do you lose? And I think that the realization that Ukraine will gonna continue to fight for their land, and we are united behind Ukraine, could be the best way to alter the calculation in Mr. Putin's mind and eventually lead him towards some form of negotiated settlement. We want peace. NATO is an organization that is in favor of peace. But today, unfortunately, I think this war will drag on. I don't think it will be Afghanistan style. It's a different kind of situation. But unfortunately, probably, we are also looking to the counteroffensive that Ukrainians are preparing. We hope that this will be successful. And this will also be a way for Russia to change the calculus and the cost-benefit analysis of this war that is basically going wrong for them. They should go even worse for them before they change their mindset.
So we've been hearing about this counter-offensive for 6 months. We're going to wait for winter to end. Are we just going to tell Russia, hey, this is coming? Or are there things about that are secret that we don't know what they're going to do?
They should be treated with very, with very careful consideration. This is about lives of people. So I don't think that Ukrainians will go in front of the international media and say, we'll attack tomorrow in that place and that place. But what is really happening, there are a couple of preconditions before they could eventually start this, and they will decide where to do it. And that's their own sovereign decision where and how to do it. So we see the preconditions being met. A little bit of a drier land, because that's for heavy equipment. We see equipment coming in. And I have to say something that is really to the credit of the Ukrainians as a people and also as a military. Since 2014, when Russia occupied Crimea, they came to us and they say, okay, we want to join NATO, we want to join the European Union, and we like to be trained by NATO and NATO countries. Canada alone, since 2014, trained more than 30,000 Ukrainian troops. Canada alone. And now, of course, we are doing much more. To the credit of the Ukrainians, even for us, they are a very pleasant surprise. They learn very quickly. They absorb NATO doctrine, command and control, with great speed and ingenuity. They're quite creative on the battlefield. They're using, even commercial tech gadgets, like commercial drones and things or apps on phones. Artillery is basically done with apps that are basically from the shelf. So I have to say that even for us, we have the top professionals in the world when it comes to military and defense, that's NATO. Ukrainians are pleasantly surprising us every day. So we also hope they will give us a very pleasant surprise when they decide. And it's only them deciding when the counter and where the counteroffensive would be launched. We wish them the best of luck, and we try to support them as much as we can.
Countries are afraid. You have Finland, Sweden coming up. Are you going to let countries like Bosnia in Georgia in as well? And how's Russia going to react to that if NATO goes forward and allows them to join?
This is the same. I mentioned the fact that the miscalculation from Russia on Finland and Sweden. But I would say that the most remarkable sea change of public opinion about Russia is Ukraine itself. Before 2014, Ukrainian people, 80% of Ukrainians believe that Russia is the closest friend to their country. Now 91% of Ukrainians believe that Russia is an existential threat to their nation. So Mr. Putin, in a long essay a few years back, he wrote, in fact, a thesis that Ukraine doesn't exist as a nation. Now we have a nation that is forging war, that is so patriotic and so united. So in a way, the most formidable, counter-performance of Mr. Putin, that he really created a Ukrainian nation. And I think the grandkids of the heroes fighting in Bakhmut, everywhere else in Ukraine, will be remembering the stories from the grandparents of the great patriotic war. So in a way, the fact that Ukraine wants to join the West, this is something that I think they earned it. Is it true for Georgia, for the Republic of Moldova, which is a smaller nation under huge hybrid pressure from Russia in the Western Balkans? So in a way, as I mentioned, Mr. Putin has managed to create a Europe whole and free, and nations in Europe to realize that Russia is dangerous and to try to find a safer place under the sun in European Union, which is also doing a great job in keeping these countries close, but also, of course, with NATO.
Let's talk about nuclear weapons. The largest nuclear bomb ever tested was called Tsar Bomba. It was tested by the old USSR on October 30th, 1961. It was a hydrogen bomb that was 1,500 times more powerful than the combined yield of the bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Fast forward 62 years later, today Russia has ultra-fast missiles called hypersonic missiles, which they call Kinzhals, which means daggers in the US, which they have already used against Ukraine. These hypersonic missiles are lethal. They travel at more than 5 times the speed of sound, 3,852 miles per hour. That's 1.1 miles every second, which is so fast they can't be shot down. They also follow what is known as low atmospheric ballistic trajectory, which allows them to evade radar systems. The bad news doesn't end there. These missiles are capable of carrying 10 nuclear warheads each. There are currently 9 countries that have nuclear weapons. Russia has the most at 5,977. 3 NATO countries have them. The United States has 5,428, France 290, United Kingdom 226. In addition, the U.S. is believed to keep some of our nukes in Belgium, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Turkey. Russia has stated several times that the use of nuclear weapons is on the table in the war against Ukraine. So here's the question. Is there a risk of World War III where everybody will nuke each other and we're all going to die?
You know, when you're a nuclear superpower, and Russia is a nuclear superpower, with that kind of formidable force for destruction comes also formidable responsibility. And of course, it's very dangerous, and we condemn, very strongly the use of nuclear saber rattling by Moscow. Of course, they're speaking about eventually using tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine, and this is something which is dangerous in itself. So a responsible nuclear superpower doesn't play with words. And look how NATO has responded to this. We were exceptionally subdued. We were just basically not escalating this thing because that's so dangerous. So NATO is a nuclear superpower as well. America, of course, our British and French allies, and of course, this is something that we share with all the allies. But to tell also the other side of the story, we see a lot of rhetoric from Russia, and we believe this is mainly used to soften the public opinion in Ukraine and the public opinion in NATO countries, just to say, okay, the danger is there. We don't see any sign that Russia is changing its nuclear posture or actions, or we don't see any suspicious activity when it comes to that. So I think we should be ready for hearing from Russia this kind of threatening rhetoric. But we also believe that they know that going across the Rubicon is something that is so dangerous for them and for all of the human mankind that they will not go there. Meanwhile, we have to also show strength and restraint. So what does NATO do? We do 3 things. We are giving real defense assurance to all our nations, the 1 billion people that we have mentioned from 32 nations. Every square inch of NATO soil is protected by NATO. And that's really something that we are taking very seriously. We are strengthening the eastern flank, nations. We are having a new generation of defense planning. We are spending more on defense. We'll have a summit in Vilnius that we hope that all allies will accept that 2% of GDP for defense is the threshold, is the floor and not the ceiling. So we are doing our part to defend NATO countries. The second obligation we have to continue to support Ukraine. And the third thing that we do at once with the first 2 is to avoid the risk of escalation in Russia. So we have been exceptionally careful while helping Ukraine, not getting NATO involved in this conflict. So you can stay assured that we know what we do. There is always a risk of incident or accident. There is something we cannot take out from the table because that's something that could happen. But we don't see any indication of a strategic real calculation for Russia to start nuclear war against us, because this would be something which is so formidably disruptive and destructive that we don't believe that this is on the table. But saber rattling, unfortunately, they will continue to use that.
So should we be worried or shouldn't be worried as an average citizen reading?
I think you should trust NATO and the way we conduct everything we do. So I think our nations are safe, and I think we should focus on the rest more pleasant part of our lives and family and business.
Let's talk about the horrific war crimes that Russia has committed against citizens. They're shooting people down in the street, mowing them down. They're raping women, pillaging villages. You've said that war crimes will not go unpunished, but how on earth are we going to punish people who are committing these war crimes? They're going to go back to Russia. What do we have to punish them?
I think there is a lesson of history that sooner or later, no crime remains unpunished, or almost no crime remains unpunished. So what we are now seeing is a sort of a reconsolidation of the international, legal system trying to cope with such horrendous crimes. And these are crimes that are really going beyond any imagination. Deportation of Ukrainian kids, rape of girls and boys and everything else, and so much destruction. And even we have conventions that are regulated even war. War is to be fought amongst warriors and militaries, not against civilian population. It's totally against any decent law or norm of warfare to target that Russians do civilian population and electrical grid and things like that. So we are now seeing an attempt to create a dedicated international tribunal for the crimes that Russia has committed during this war. And of course, that's not always easy because jurisdiction and all these things. You've seen some other countries that are still reluctant in applying the decisions that the International Criminal Court has taken. But something tells me that in the end, justice will be served. And I think, probably not everyone, but I know that all these horrific crimes will not go unpunished. And this is just a matter of patience, collecting evidence. That's a lot of effort because in the end, you have to be in the court of justice. And we are basically the ones abiding international norms. So I see building up the institutional and the legal case because the moral case is very clear. This is totally war crimes, and they should be punished.
I hope you're enjoying this video so far. But before we jump back in, I want to know if you've ever thought about what you need to do to reach the next level of success in your life. Over the last 25 years, I've been an advisor to more than 50 companies. I've invested nearly 100, including Google, Lyft, and Seagate. And I also co-founded a company that today is worth more than $15 billion. I've been incredibly blessed in my journey, and at this stage in my life, I want to give back. I want to share the lessons I've learned so you can reach incredible success way faster than I did. In my own journey, I've learned that having the right mentor is a massive advantage to achieving our goals. I'm hugely passionate about mentoring others, and I'm looking for a few hungry entrepreneurs who are excited to take action on their journey to incredible future success. So if that's you, I've got an opportunity. In the description of this video, there's a link where you can apply to work with me. All you need to do is answer a few simple questions, and if you're a good fit, my team will reach out so we can build a game plan together. All right, now let's get back to the video. All right, let's talk about some more positive things. Tell us about NATO's $1 billion entrepreneur fund. What's behind that and what's its purpose?
Listen, when Secretary General Stoltenberg recruited me for the job to PC's number 2, he gave me an interesting job. He said, Mircea, that's me, I want you to be the champion of innovation in NATO. And for me, innovation is not only technology. Innovation is a mindset. You are innovating with this podcast, with your great crew here. I try to innovate in dealing with my kids and education.
Do they listen to you, or you're the dad, so they don't really listen, but they listen to someone else?
They listen to me, and that's why I'm trying to use my chips wisely, because they listen to me, but not on everything I say. So I have to be very, very careful. But I chair the innovation board in NATO, and that's a formidable experience for me, because I look to every single technology, AI and big data, biotech, quantum, everything, space, cyber, with the lenses of national security. And you see the same technology, the same basically object can be used in a ubiquitous way for doing great good, fighting cancer and, better education systems and many good things, supply chain, everything else. When we decided to really nurture what we call the innovation ecosystem in this 1 billion strong alliance, with so many great universities, with probably, I think, most of the Nobel Prize laureates coming from NATO countries. We decided to create two things. One, to have a sort of an ecosystem of test centers, accelerators, where startups and young entrepreneurs can test their ideas for free in something like 100 places all over the alliance, from Romania and Estonia all the way to Canada and America, everything in between. And if you have an idea for a dual-use technology on anything, you can go and come to us and say, listen, I would like, knock, knock, door is open. We'd like to take this in what we call DIANA, which is the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic. That's the acronym. And you can go and test it in AI in Romania or something in Texas, whatever. And if that technology is promising, then the innovation fund that we started, which is the first sovereign multinational venture capital fund. Sounds quite a tension in what I'm saying. Yeah, it is a tension. But we convinced NATO allies to put some money into the first ever multinational sovereign venture capital fund. So when you have a company testing an idea in Diana and then getting a little bit of seed money from the NATO Innovation Fund, and we just recruited the management of the fund, will be done by professionals. It's not bureaucrats. We hire people from the venture capital industry, the best of the best. So that company, with their idea tested in Diana and a little bit of seed money, they mature the innovation. The young ones have the equity in their pocket, not forced to sell it too soon.
Do you keep some of the equity?
We don't.
Okay, so it's 100%.
We want them to be successful. It's not for us making money. We are an international organization. We don't make profit out of that. So all these young entrepreneurs with an idea which is already consolidated, with a little bit of money, to help them cross the death valley of the place between an idea and the marketplace, and then they can go to the real big venture capital or the big tech and the others and mature their business. And then, and the benefit for us that we have smart technology from young startups producing for us dual-use technology that can be used for the civilian purpose, for the good, positive sense, but also making sure that it can be used also in national security. Is good business? Yes. Is it smart? Yes. And it's also addressing an issue because not every single nation in NATO are as powerful economically or financially, or the depth of the venture capital system, or the wealth of the American universities. So some countries are smaller. So I have also the Albanians of the world, and and Croatia and other countries. My country, Romania, is a big country in the region. It's not the most affluent of the nations in the universe. So in a way, we also create less asymmetry of power between allies. And again, as I mentioned, from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, and from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean, we have a huge ecosystem of innovation. And I'm very proud that what Jens Stoltenberg told me, Mircea, be the champion of innovation. I have a sense of mission accomplished in a way, because we have done things that will be helping in the competition with China, because that's the most formidable challenge that we had in centuries as the political West. Maintaining our edge in technology is the essence of this competition. So it would be a pity for us not to put to work the fantastic talent coming from bigger or smaller nations in NATO. And as I said, Finland and Sweden joining will also add tremendous depth and sophistication to our technology ecosystem.
So in the VC world where I live, you're a venture firm, you get over 1,000 business plans a year, some 5,000. You have to sift through those. I imagine you're talking about a worldwide $1 billion fund. I imagine you're going to get tens of thousands of submissions. How are you going to manage that and pick out the good ones and the bad ones? How much are you funding per company? And then who should they contact for all the people listening to this podcast? They're not sending you an email, but how do you go about it to have someone look at your business plan?
So basically, on the Diana side, in Europe, we have a European HQ for Diana, which is based at Imperial College in London. We recruited the head of Diana, Deep Chana, who used to be a professor at Imperial and is now running Diana together with a professional team. And they're issuing challenges. So we don't open the fund or Diana to everything. We say, okay, now we're more interested in quantum. Give an example. And we are waiting for applications from startups for Diana and then innovation fund through challenges. So we don't get everything at the same time, because then it will be very difficult to do this. I'll be speaking at the Milken conference tomorrow after we have this podcast. And I'll be on the panel with the person we recruited to run our innovation fund. So now we have two institutions that have a governance that is actually like in real life. So it's not NATO running those things. We have professionals hired to do this thing. So yeah, there will be a cap of money and a challenge on what kind of technologies and what kind of applications we are waiting, and then through a process we can really manage. And we hope to be lots of requests for funding and lots of requests for testing ideas in Diana. So, and of course, this is something which is a learning curve. We are not going to stop here. Probably the fund will grow, I hope, even bigger. And also in Diana, it's not a static process. So tomorrow I could have another university, I don't know. Now we have in Rome, we have our Italian-American friends here in the studio. And by the way, the top military commander in NATO is Chris Cavoli, superb military leader. He's also Italian-American. So we have now in Turin, Italy, one of the, or more of the, what Italy offers to Diana. Next year could be somebody from Turin or something from Milan. Or in Bucharest, my alma mater, the Polytechnic University, is offering a test center for AI. Next time could be something in Cluj in Transylvania, offering something else. So there's also a sort of a competition inside the innovation ecosystem in NATO to have more. In Denmark, we have the Niels Bohr Research Institute doing on quantum. It's the best in Europe that we have. We'll have Sweden and Finland offering new things to us, and we come. So, yeah, there'll be a lot of dynamism, and this will be with the speed of private sector. We don't want to have a bureaucratic process impeding on the velocity or the capacity of the fund and Diana to reach its potential.
What are the check sizes that you're writing or are going to write?
I'm not going to get into that. When it comes about money, I'm not into that. But as I mentioned, it's already on the websites, both the Innovation Fund in NATO and Diana, and I think anyone interested could look it up. It would be a very transparent and professional process.
On our path to success, we all have mistakes, we overcome challenges. Can you talk about a few of yours on a personal basis and NATO's and what you learned from them?
Listen, I mentioned one of my credos in life, which is never be satisfied with yourself. There's always room to do more, to do better. And not necessarily in terms of, having more money in your bank account. It always helps. But to be a more fulfilled human being, to be a better father or a better husband or a better friend or a better citizen. So I always believe that there is a sort of a ongoing cycle of investing in yourself and doing something with your life. The other thing that happened when I was a very young ambassador to America, I got an invitation totally by accident, because I was a young guy, scared to death what I'm doing here in this big country, so young and relatively unexperienced. And I got an invitation to the Aspen Institute for a leadership seminar. And they do this, not coincidentally, also from 1949, the same year when NATO was founded, the Aspen Institute in Colorado was founded. And they started basically with a Goethe bicentennial, big gathering. And the old mining city was dying, and they just came from all over the world with philosophers and business leaders and a music tent, which was assembled. You see the photo with the old Fords, coming to that place. And ever since, they are doing these leadership programs. And I attended one of the leadership programs, which is not about skills. It's about values. It's about the moral compass and the ongoing conversation along history, because from the Roman Empire days and ancient Greece to today's world and tomorrow's world, there is the same conversation between community and freedom, between individual and collective rights. And this kind of leadership seminar that is basically helping you understand the ongoing conversation about who we are and what's the meaning of a good society and a fulfilled life. And the combination between mind, body, and spirit. We find it also in church, but you also find it with philosophers. And for me, it was a sort of a tremendous wake-up call for me. As a young guy, understanding that being successful in life is not enough if you also do something more. So when I returned to Romania, I started an Aspen Institute in Romania. And to give an example of a huge satisfaction I had out of the thousands of young ones that we've been educating and training in leadership in my part of the world, and I was receiving a Deputy Defense Minister of Ukraine in NATO HQ just last week. And he says, a young guy, big, this khaki quasi-uniform that they're wearing. He said, Mr. Geoana, I would like to thank you. You changed my life. I attended the Aspen Institute Romania Leadership Seminar.
Amazing.
And the Sunday before, I go to the Romanian church in Paris. I was visiting Paris. And I go to the service. I'm a Christian Orthodox. And I go to the service. At the end of the service, a young priest, the Byzantine robes, Christian Orthodox, comes to me, Mr. Geoana, I'd like to thank you. You changed my life. I attended a leadership seminar as a young student at Business School of Bucharest to the Aspen Institute. And now I turn to become a priest because my call is with God and everything he wanted to do. So I'm just saying that I strongly believe in leadership and what we call value-based leadership. And values are not identical. You probably, in your philosophy of life, you're probably driven, by results and things. Others are more, let's say, more community-oriented. Some people would like to do, to start a charity. Others would like to start a big business. Others would just like to be left alone. And just be able to live their lives. Some people would like to go, to become a Buddhist and to have a sort of a life of self-improvement spiritually. I'm not saying it's as one size fits all, but investing in young leaders and the values animated in them is the most rewarding thing in my life. And this is something that I'll continue to do. And my dream, when I really get old, well, now I'm still doing pretty well, is to become a moderator of Aspen leadership seminars. And I'm preparing to take a course and to be able to have the same joy with many, many young generations to come. So that's my thing, investing in young people to have the best possible and most fulfilled lives that they can have.
So what are 5 ingredients it takes to be a great leader? If you can list them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Number 1, my lesson. There are not such thing as a natural born leader. You can build yourself a leader, even if you're a shyer person. I was very shy when I was young.
That's hard to believe, by the way.
Yeah, I was very shy. And it was probably communist education and my dad and all these things. I was shy. And you see, I changed gears, and here I am, if you wake me up really at night and tell me you go to the fantastic, stadium in Los Angeles, because I'm still watching the Super Bowl halftime show of last year with hip hop and with DRE and Snoopy Dogg. If you put me speak in front of 100,000 people at the stadium, I go and speak. I have no problem in doing this. And the same guy, 30, 40 years back, I was the shyest person in the universe. So the first lesson, you can really build yourself to being a leader. Secondly, there's not one type of leader. There are some leaders that are leading by example. There are leaders that are team leaders, others that are basically leading from behind. So, and the third one is never be happy with the kind of success that you have in that moment of life. I can only give explicit leadership lessons because God has made all of us unique. And I'm too humble and also too experienced in life to say that my recipe can be replicated by anyone else. The only thing we all have is the capacity to learn, to improve, to be better human beings, and basically try to make a difference in the world. And it could be a difference in making a great podcast like I hope we are doing today, or you can really be a president of a country, or you can be a CEO of a great company, or you just be a great civic leader, or somebody that is just educating as a single mom your kids to be successful in life through sacrificing yourself. So there's no one type of leadership. Definition of success is subjective. And thirdly, we always have something good in ourselves that we can offer, and we can do a little bit of good in our lives.
So sometimes we think about being a leader, not just with straight up the middle, tangible things, but things like humor. You're known to be a funny guy. How important is it to be funny, to be a team leader? Does that help you become a team leader? I want people to think about in this podcast ways to improve in ways that we don't normally think about to improve ourselves in our search for excellence.
Listen, as we grow more experienced, there is a tendency for all of us to become a little bit, how should I put it, rigid and dry from within, and a little bit arrogant, because we know how to do things. And you know, I've done
sometimes.
Yeah, but anyway, we have such great experience that we start believing that our experience is in itself enough. It is not. So what I'm trying to improve in myself is to be able to listen more, to be a little bit more humble. I'm not an arrogant person. I'm a relatively modest kind of person. But sometimes I have so many things to share that I'm not listening to the other guy. I'm always trying to tell them what I believe is good for them. And it's a two-way street. And even a guy would not, you know, the average Joe has something to tell you. Every guy, young or old, man or woman, whatever kind of nationality or whatever person they are, they have something to offer. When I was doing campaigning in my home country of Romania, because by the way, I won the elections and I was declared the victor of the presidential elections. So I went to bed as a president of Romania, and I woke up with some suspicious ballots coming in and said, no. And it was proven it was basically a rigged election. So I overcame that thing. Look, I'm moving forward. So what I'm just saying, don't let yourself, especially for the more experienced, the more seasoned leaders, don't let that kind of wealth of knowledge and experience dominate you. There's always something to learn. Listen to the others. Even the most, let's say, unspectacular human being can teach you something, a lesson of life, a story. Listen more, and then try to give back as much as you possibly can.
You talked about success a minute ago. What does it take to be successful? Can you give us 3 or 5 ingredients of success?
There's only one. Never give up. Never give up. Life is tough. You're up, you're down. I was up, I was down. You can one day be sick, one day have a problem, one day you have a problem with your girlfriend or whatever. I mean, things happen in life. Never give up. Never give up. We have one life, and God has put us on this earth to do the best with our lives. Never give up. There's always a second chance. There's always a third chance. As long as you keep the faith that by doing the good things and the right things, you can do things in life. So never give up. That's the only one lesson. Nothing more. One. Never give up. Things are sometimes very successful. Keep them rolling. Sometimes they go south. Don't give up. Always there is a chance to come back and do better things with your life.
So one of the things that's led to my success is something that I call extreme preparation. That's out preparing anybody else in anything that I do. If someone's preparing 1 hour for something, I may go 10 or 15 or 20. Has extreme preparation been important to any of your accomplishments and success? And can you give us some very specific examples of that?
Listen, I'm coming from a culture which is not always very disciplined. I mentioned the fact that we are very close to Italians as Romanians. So we have a lot of creativity. Sometimes we know that we are talented people, really. And sometimes when you have a sort of a natural talent for something, preparation seems to be less important. You know, like
Yeah, but people get lazy. That's the problem.
And my lesson is that even if you're very gifted and talented in sports, in music, in politics, in whatever profession you have, always find time to prepare properly. There is not look at at tennis. I love tennis, and look this young Spanish guy who's now dominating tennis. He's immensely gifted, but he's so hardworking as well. I don't think that extreme preparation, as you mentioned, it would be something for me, to be honest, because I don't think I have enough patience to go hours and hours. But what I learned also in NATO, and also I learned in America, and in my days in France when I was young, is that talent is not enough. You have to also work to put your talent into work. So in NATO, there is absolutely no single thing we do without what we call a prep meeting before. There are people from a speech. I will give a commencement speech at Virginia Tech in a week from now. I'll be at Stanford. I will be in Washington. Everywhere there is a preparation to do this. So yeah, you're right. I'm not a big fan of extreme preparation, but I'm a great fan of proper, serious preparation because that's the key to success.
How many times are you going to run through that speech before you get up there?
A few times. I give you the recent speech I gave at the Imperial College, which is the annual lecture. It was something more solemn, you know, British tradition, a great scope, and I think I prepared with my team a few times back and forth, and in the end, also at the last minute, I also made some corrections, and I also a little bit improvised on the margins during the speech. But there's always a back and forth process with my team, and I'm very, very fortunate to have a fantastic team of speechwriters in NATO. There's always me. I try to also to put something of me. You can have great speechwriters, but there's always something from your personality and your vision that has to be present in any public appearance.
I think part of preparation too is preparing for the unexpected. And when your daughter was 6 months old, you were in President Clinton's office and she bit his hand, and your son was 2 and took something off of his desk. So how do you prepare for very awkward moments like that and keep your cool and not lose it?
It was such a, yeah. I remember it was a snowy day in Washington. And when they invite you to present the credentials to the White House, to the president, they send you a big limo from the White House to pick you up. It's a very, solemn thing. And our residence in Washington was basically on a sort of a street which was a little bit steep. And of course, American cars, especially in Washington, they don't have enough, there's no 4-wheel drive. So all of us, you should see me and my team and the drivers, pushing the car because we couldn't leave the house. And then we had our kids with us. But President Clinton was so gracious. Sandy Berger, God bless his soul, was there. So everybody was looking so amused at our son taking a big stick from Zaire, very colorful, from the Resolute desk from President Clinton, and playing with us. So yeah, we are prepared for the unexpected, but also have humor. Because if you take things too seriously, then you could have a problem, because things, you have to treat them also as they come. You cannot curate everything. You cannot prepare for everything. So leave a little bit of humor. And that's how all of us treated that moment in the Oval, which was just great for our kids and for us.
What do you think about the value of mentors? How important are they in our success?
I believe in mentorship. I've done this a few times. I also believe in the indirect mentorship kind of thing. So I have people that influence my life, and they were not my mentors explicitly. They were their example was so powerful that they were basically mentoring me without them knowing they are my mentors. So I think the second version for me is more valuable. And there were a few people like this that really influenced my life. It's also a matter of timing. What kind of situation are you in, and what kind of influence you can get in a moment like this. when you're very successful, sometimes you believe you know it all.
That's a mistake.
Yeah. When you're down, you're more open for advice, for wisdom, for compassion, for love, for faith. So that's why I think that the most important mentors for me were not the ones influencing me. They are when I was really a big shot, but more when I was more lonely and a little bit more sad and a little bit more vulnerable. And I think that's the kind of mentorship that I would encourage people to try to have too. And if you can, of course, if you can give time to young ones and accept to be their mentor and help them as much as you can. I started a mentorship program at NATO, and I had a formidable German young lady. She came back from Afghanistan, by the way. And I was so happy to be able to work with her. I started in NATO a young professionals program. We offer something like 20 positions. You know how many applications we got for 20 positions?
Thousands.
1,400. And I'm meeting those, and I'm not their mentor. And they do a great thing. For 3 years, they rotate. And once they are working with us in Brussels, then they go to America, and then they go, I don't know where else. And every 6 months, I'm meeting the 20 young leaders of NATO. I say, how are you guys doing? I'm not their mentor. I'm just a more seasoned guy, trying to see how they enjoy the experience with my organization. And I'm, So giving back to the young ones is very, 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 very fulfilling and very rewarding.
I love mentoring young, hungry people. You know, I have a summer intern program. Your daughter was in my program. She's phenomenal.
I remember.
We got 1,000 applications now each summer. It's become a thing. And there's nothing more enjoyable to me than to take someone young and hungry and motivated and make a huge difference in somebody's life. I had dinner last night with one of my interns 11 years ago. She worked at a consulting firm, went to Wharton. Now she's working at a large car company, and it's just incredible what she has been able to do. And it's incredible for her to tell me I had a big influence on her career. It keeps me going. It motivates me to keep doing it. And with the podcast as well.
Continue doing this. I remember when I was, I think a few years back, I met through the Aspen Institute, US, a guy who was working with General McChrystal on a program which was, I think, called National Service. And now I think, is Service Year Alliance. There's a big program that was also adopted by the White House. So basically and I think Cisco offered for free the digital platform to have volunteer offer and volunteer needs being matched with private sector, with government, with citizens. And it is my dream to bring it back to Romania because civic involvement, trying to do these kind of things on big or smaller scale is very, very important. So I'm going to be meeting General McChrystal in Washington and try to seek his advice. And I also talked to Chuck Robbins, the CEO of Cisco, to say if he would be able to do in a smaller replica in Romania. And I'm dreaming of the day when we'll have people, doing, not only the military service, but also the civic service, and trying to give something back to the community. So congratulations for the work you're doing with the young ones.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You've been very successful in your career. You've had jobs that take an enormous amount of time, day, night, morning. I'm sure you get woken up with crazy things from time to time. What's the secret to work-life balance? And what's your advice to people when they're 20 years old versus 30 years old versus 40 years old? Where's that line?
For me, doing sports and listening to music. And of course, family. But I would say that these are the two big things that you have to keep your emotional side and your brain, in sync. And my life was not always full of success. I had lots of difficult moments. And when you're very successful, there is an adrenaline of success coming with you. You're pumped up. You do things. You're in a way, you feel fulfilled. The art of living a meaningful life is to try to stay afloat at least when you're low. And again, family, sports, learning something new, and listening to lots of music. I love music, all sorts of music. I mentioned the Super Bowl halftime show, but also classical music or whatever kind of music I just love. And I think that the combination between, it's again mind, body, and spirit, and you can find a balance between the three. You'll be able to serve through life and have a meaningful life.
What keeps you up at night?
When you work with things so complex like the ones I'm working with here in NATO, sometimes you also have a tendency to have a sort of a foresight for bad things to happen. I had in Brussels a new friend of ours that also worked, Anna, that intern for you, also worked for a great lady here. And she came to speak to NATO and the European Union about antimicrobial disease. So we develop a sort of an immunity to antibiotics and to things like this, and that's becoming a big issue. And the World Health Organization is saying that it's one of the 10 dangerous things to come. I'm not saying I'm waking up at night because of these things, but in the business of working with crises, I'm thinking which will be the next one to hit us. And even more than that, which will be the combination of crises that will be hitting us at the same time. So in a way, I have a sort of a dooms, instinct in my radars. And in a way, this is bad because it can wake you up at night. It's also good because you are more resilient and be expecting the unexpected. So for the young ones, I say buckle up because there will be lots of unexpected things coming in your life. And the more complicated life is, the more you have to go to the simple things that keep us as human beings who we are, which is love, compassion, giving something back to society, and trying to improve yourself all your life.
Your term as Deputy Secretary General of NATO is 4 years. You've been asked to stay another year. What's next for you after you leave NATO?
I don't know. We have, I think we are in a way lucky to have this big job at NATO because I learned lots of things. We have many options after we leave. We might go back to Romania and continue the work that we have started there. We could do something different. Anyway, I'll do everything I will do with the same passion, and I hope I'll be invited again on your podcast.
I'd love for you to be on, especially if you're the president of Romania. That would be a super.
We'll see. Time will tell us. Again, I'm vaccinated with politics, so we'll see what life brings us.
Before we finish today, I want to go ahead and ask some more open-ended questions. I call this part of my podcast, Fill in the Blank to Excellence. Are you ready to play?
Sure.
The biggest lesson I've learned in life is
never give up.
My number one professional goal is
to be the best in my profession of politics.
My number one personal goal is
to see my kids happy.
My biggest regret is
that I was not doing enough when I had the opportunity to change things in life.
The one thing I've dreamed of for a long time but haven't done yet is
to go to a Super Bowl final, to a game. I attended the Lakers game, and by the way, I'm very happy that they made it on the way up. But I would like to really go to a Super Bowl and to see the halftime show live. That's something I really want to do if I could. I don't know. Let's see. Next year will be where? Okay, we'll find out.
I'm not sure where it is next year. Who's your favorite football team?
In Romania is my family's team, which is a smaller team. Of course, all of us are looking to Premier League. We are big soccer fans in Europe, so I was watching the Arsenal-Manchester City competition and see who's going to win the Champions League. That's big. That's a big deal.
Do you have a favorite team, our kind of football, American football?
No. I attended a few games. I played rugby football when I was young also for 2 years. So I love American football because it reminds me of the original rugby football, which was the inspiration for American football too.
If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice to your 21-year-old self, what would it be?
Take more time with your kids when they're young. The only regret I have, because being so busy and so absorbed with everything I do and being so driven, that sometimes probably I didn't give my kids enough quality time as a father as I should have. Thanks God that my wife Mihaela compensated somehow, and I hope the kids are not holding anything against me.
If you could meet one person in the world, who would it be?
Myself.
What do you mean by that?
Just being the better self that I know I can be. I think we should not dream of being someone else. I think we should dream to being the better version of oneself.
What's the one question you wish that I'd asked you?
I would have hoped you don't ask the question about returning to Romanian politics, but because that's my team tells me never touch on that one.
Mircea, you've done amazing things in your career. You're doing a great job at NATO. I'm so grateful for you to make time for coming in today. Thanks for being here on In Search of Excellence.
Thank you so much, and I hope that the young ones will be watching our show.
They're going to love it.